Hi, Joyce.
Yeah, good morning.
Yay.
I thought we'd start by just making a little sample to
Works
get the
for me.
technique down, and then you can make something bigger. Good morning.
Hi, good
Hi,
Joyce.
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
You know, I normally have an exercise class at this time, but I don't have it today. So I thought, is it all right if I just watch for a while and see what you do?
Absolutely. Delighted to have you.
Well, thank
Janet, this
you.
is Rosamond. Rosamond is my neighbor, and we almost
Oh,
never see each other. Even
I
though
know.
we're in the next
I
building.
know. I know.
Hi.
I'm trying to find my, oh, there it is. Downloads.
Janet had asked us to talk about Bargello, so I've been trying to work up to it. Because Bargello projects can be a little daunting, so I've been trying to build up to it. Thought I'd concentrate on the basics today and give you some of the principles for designing your next project, and we'll see what you have in mind.
I've seen Bargello needlepoint.
Yes,
It's kind of like V's.
that's right.
That the,
It began as a needlepoint technique.
okay.
Filter steel, all kinds of stuff.
Oh,
So I put some thoughts together to get us started this morning. Yes, there you go.
hmm.
Like here's a Bargello quilt.
Ah,
I like this picture.
yeah.
So it's about movement of the colors, the convergence of the colors and the motion are the
Ooh.
hallmarks of Bargello. This is a classic pattern
Oh, wow.
that in needlepoint they call this the flame stitch.
Mhm.
Okay, and so you do one stitch, two stitches next to each other, and in each case you're spanning more than one hole on the needlepoint canvas. 2, 3 holes, something like that. And it maybe make one and then two together, and then it gets wider. So you can see the width of the stitch, and we're moving.
Mm.
And that's what we're going to try to recreate with quilting. So as you add each strip, and this is what I said the last time, you want to check the joints by feel because you want those points to come together just right. And you can do that basically with your fingers. You can feel it. If they're too far apart, you'll feel a sort of trench. And if they're too close together, you'll feel a ridge. So you train yourself to feel that they're in the right position. I pin each seam. I'll show you a method that does not involve pinning, but it takes some practice. And you want to guide each joint carefully through underneath your sewing machine and press it flat and then press it open. So we'll press it 2 times basically. And then you add the next strip. So the goals are to have everything be flat and even, and consistent seams are very important. So if you have a foot with a guide, this is a good time to use it. These are skills you need for Bargello, but they're also skills you need for everything else in quilting. So it's a good practice run for a whole bunch of reasons. So I like to begin with a small project, especially when I'm doing a new technique, to make sure I like it. And to make my mistakes on a little project that if I wind up throwing it away, it's no great loss, or I can turn it into something small. So it's a small investment of time and money. You decide whether or not you like the pattern, or maybe you don't like the way the colors came together. And you can learn whether you like doing this, do you like it well enough to make a queen size quilt or a king size quilt, which is a huge, humongous investment in your time and money. So this way you can figure out whether or not you like it. So what I started out doing was, this is going to become a doll quilt because it was a good size for a doll quilt. And one of the proposals I had sent you was to do this heart, which I thought would be really nice. What I realized as I was laying it out, though, is it has some complexity to it. It's not insuperable, but as a beginner project, it's a little bit unfair because it does have some twists and turns. So I'm going to start today with just the doll quilt approach. Good morning, Betty.
Good morning.
Hey, Betty.
Hi.
Betty, this is Rosamond, who's my neighbor, and Betty is one of our wonderful quilters in this
Good
home.
morning, Betty.
Good morning.
Right.
That's beautiful. Did you just whip that up over the weekend?
Yeah, I did.
That heart is beautiful.
The heart is beautiful, but I decided it was a little too complex for a beginner project. So I'm not going to do that one today. If anybody bought materials for the heart, we can talk about that later, but let's do the practice piece first. And the stars were something that Janet in particular had expressed interest in, where you make one segment and then you put these together. Betty will realize that this is very similar to what you did, putting a star together. So each of these points is a separate square, a separate block that we will put together and get to assemble them. And then of course you have to deal with the margins as well. So this is an 8-pointed star and this is a 6-pointed star. The principles are exactly the same. The angles are different. This is a 60-degree angle. This is a 45-degree angle. So in a square, I'm sorry?
Is one angle easier than the other?
No, they're exactly the same. It's just that you have to watch your angle. So how many degrees in this angle here?
45. Oh, no, 90.
That's
90.
90. That's right. When it's a square, each point is 90 and half of that is 45. So this is a 45-degree angle. Oops, hit the wrong button. So this is a 45-degree angle. This is a 60-degree angle. So this point is the 60 degrees. All right. So, and I'll show you a little bit about that. And I mentioned in my message last night that I kind of would like the day off next week. But it occurred to me that we could get together and just be social next week. I have no problem with that. I'll be sewing away. So if you want to bring a project and just be social next week, but I'd like a day off from preparing the agenda. Okay.
I'm surprised you didn't take a day off long before this.
So anyway, so all the things that we're going to learn making this little doll quilt or table runner or whatever you want it to be.
Pot holder.
A pot holder. It could be a pot holder. Absolutely.
I can always use another pot
So
holder.
it takes some practice. So we're just going to do a practice piece, and you'll see from what it takes. It takes only a snippet of 6 or 8 different fabrics. So it's not a big, costly project either. So what I did first was to choose my materials. So you gather your colors, and I use this as my focal fabric, is what they say in quilting. You know, you choose a patterned fabric, and then you choose things that complement the patterned fabric. And I was looking for something girly. I'm going to give this doll quilt to a little girl. Also, if since this is actually an experiment, you're playing around with it, one thing you could try is use something with a direction to it. So you can see this is a directional quilt, a piece of fabric. It has a specific direction to it. The purses are either right side up or upside down or sideways. There's a specific direction that it seems to call for. And so I was playing with how's that going to work out in my quilt. So these are the fabrics I chose. And just for purposes of this experiment, I chose 1.5 inch blocks. 1.5 inches strips is about all I want to do. That means that in our quilt, we're only going to see 1 inch because we lose a 1/2 inch. Remember, you lose a 1/2 inch in the seam on either side of it. So all we're actually going to see in the finished piece is 1 inch, and we have to cut 1.5. And in real life, you're probably more likely to be dealing with a 2.5-inch wide strip. If you want to do 2.5, that's great. You're just going to need that much more length. So what I used was 1.5 by 18 of each of these pieces, and I have 2 such pieces. So one width of fabric divided by 2 is perfect. And, or if you have a fat quarter, just take a 1.5-inch strip off the long side of your fat quarter, and you've got 22-inch strips, which are wonderful. So here I just did them in bright colors so we can see them a little bit more easily than my pinks that meld together a little bit. So on each strip, you're going to lose a 1/2 inch because of the 2 seam allowances, 1/4 inch here, 1/4 inch here. We'll see in the finished piece is just the 1 inch. For 1-inch strips, you cut 1.5, which means that our piece is going to be 8 inches wide. If we do 8 of them, I've got 6 in this picture, but I would recommend you do 8. And if you use 2.5-inch strips, you're going to need more length because we're going to cut it the other way and we'll need twice as long. And it'll be a 16-inch wide piece. So you can decide what you want to play with. You could make 6 colors. It's up to you. No rules. All right, so you cut these strips. I cut 1.5 by 22s. And decide what sequence I'm going to put them in. And you assemble your strata. So the strata is just strip, all in a row like that. And we're going to need 2 of them. I turned them this way. If you turn it upside down, they're exactly the same. So you can put them end to end, or you can put them sideways, either way. Now we're going to make a tube. Now we've got these together. I'm going to take the purple one and right sides together, attach it to the yellow one. So now it's one circular tube. Morning. This is actually Karen Stram who's joining us, but she likes to come in under an alias, so that's all right. So, and I've pressed all the seams in one direction. So I squared up, trimmed the ends, so I now have a perfect rectangle, and I'm going to sew the purple one to the yellow one to make it completely a circle. And you'll see why in a minute. So now I'm going to fold that in half. I've made a circle, so I'm looking at the back sides of it, no matter what I do. And I'm going to cut it neatly the other way around. So now I'm cutting it like that. And now I have these little strips. And because it's a circle, it doesn't really start with yellow and end in purple. It really doesn't have a starting point. So I could really make it start wherever I want it to start. So these are our rainbow strips, and they're all tubes. They're all circles. So now we start laying them out to make our pattern. So you use your seam ripper to divide the loop where you want it.
I'm using a small scissors instead of a steam ripper because I can't find mine.
Sure. The advantage of the seam ripper is that you can aim it more accurately, and you can just make sure that you're cutting just the seam thread and not the fabric.
Yeah.
So that's the advantage of that tool. So you can see here I'm starting to lay it out in a pattern. So here I've got this one, and I've made sure that I have the purple one at the top on the next loop and the blue on the top on the next loop. Or if you laid it flat, you can just take them off and move them. And here you can see my pinks. And here's the pattern I'm doing. Okay.
Oh.
So follow this dark pink.
Oh, I like that. So yeah, the theme travels through. Oh, interesting.
Okay, so you one
No.
color,
They do
follow
say
one
no.
color, and you'll see the pattern.
They're
All right,
in a way of
now I
Australia, they know who you are.
And you can see I put in the picture one of my loops, so I can decide where I want it to open.
Then she.
And make sure you get it right side up versus upside down, which is very easy to do when you're in a circle. So, but you can see me laying it out. This one, I cut it in the wrong place. Fine. So I'm just going to fix my mistake
Where's the picture?
by pulling the bottom two and putting them at the top, reattach it here. And similarly, this guy, I'm going to take these three off and put them at the top and reattach it. And the reason I lay it out like this is so that you can see whether or not you put that strip upside down. It's very easy to do. And when a big piece, you're going to need a big place to lay it out.
This
Like
is the
I have my design wall, and I'll attach it to my design wall. And just hang each strip, just pin it at the top, and let it hang. But at least you get them all lined up correctly.
Joyce,
Yes.
what do you do about nesting seams? Do you worry about that?
The seams?
Nesting them.
Yeah, I'll show you in a minute. I've got a slide here. Okay, so I'm moving these to the top. Make sure that the pattern is all lined up. See what I did? I didn't even notice till I looked at this picture. This piece is upside down. Okay, because see, next to this floral, there should be a pink. So next to the floral, oops, growing pink. So this piece is upside down. See how easy it is to do that? So when you attach it, you need to make sure you've got the sequence of events correct and that the pattern is moving the way you intended. Okay. And does it matter what the pattern is? No. Now, one thing I want you to notice is this one is a little more narrow. I cut it a little narrower. And the reason for that is when you're at the bottom of this point, it comes to a point better if it's narrower. So you'll play with whatever design you want. And so now we start assembling the strips. I put these two together. And you can see the points are matching pretty well, not 100%, but good enough. And then I pressed it, and I press it just like a sandwich first. And then once I've done that, then I open it. So you sort of set the threads into the fabric with the first pressing, and then you open it up and it should open up nice and neat. Now we need to nest the seams together. This is what Janet was asking about. And you can see this seam is going down and this guy is going up, but this one's coming down. So I want them all to go in the same direction. So I'll take my new strip and iron it, just sweep your iron up and get them going in the right direction before I start playing with it. Okay, so these are going down. The new strip should go up. And I run my iron up to make sure that's true. So one goes down, one goes up. And now they're headed in the right direction. So I should be able to nest them a lot better. So I'll nest them one by one. When you're doing this in the beginning, I would do it by hand so that you get the feel of it. Feel how it feels when they're nested properly. You can look at the edge and make sure that these seams are lined up. This is just laid on top. It's not matched. So these are not right yet. This one's pretty good. You see how the seam lines should be pretty much on top of each other, but not too close to make a ridge and not too far apart where it makes a little gap, a little valley. And then we have our piece. So you see what I mean about the point?
Mhm.
A little pointier because this is a narrower strip. And you'll see that in the Bargellos that you look at on the net.
Flames.
Oh, I didn't put that. Okay. So there's lots of interesting things you can do with that. So practice it so you get consistent seams, get everything nice and straight, and hopefully the piece comes out pretty much a rectangle, not too far off. It'll be a little far off. That's all right. I have another camera. I'm going to switch my other camera here.
Wow.
So I wanted to show you a little bit of drafting. Whitney will appreciate this. Of how you go about planning a star quilt. And this could be it could be the 5-pointed, sorry, it could be the 8-pointed or the 6-pointed star. You start out exactly the same way. Okay, so we start out by drawing a plan. And I'm planning one where I'm using 1.5-inch squares. If you're doing 2.5, it's the same principle. So in terms of planning for this step, you can go ahead and just use a 1-inch finished, which would be cut to 1.5. We'll just plan it that way because what we're doing is figuring out how our colors are going to work together. So if I want to make a second line that's 1 inch from this line, watch what we can do with the ruler. I just slide it up until my 1-inch line is right on top of the line I just drew, and draw the next line. So it's pretty easy. So I've got 3 lines. I need a third one.
Wow, that just took me back. That's the first thing you learn in drafting class because you have to put the lettering. You have to make your own lines and oh yeah.
Right. Right.
I
Okay.
forgot about that.
We've got 3
Yeah.
strips. We can pretend we've just put 3 strips of fabric together. Now I want to draw a 45-degree line. So I look on my little ruler and I found the 45-degree line, which is right here in front of my finger. Can you see the green lines?
Oh,
Green cross lines. Let me turn this upside down so we have
I don't know
white
what that
underneath it.
was.
The
Cool.
faint
Mine
green
too.
lines, which I can see better than you can see, I'm afraid. But anyway, there are faint green lines going at different angles, and they're labeled. Like this one says 30, and this one says 45, and this one says 60. Okay, so depending what angle I want, I take the green line and put the green line on top of my nice dark black line. So here's my 45. I'm putting the 45-degree green line on top of my black line. And now I've got a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to draw this 45-degree angle. Did I get off camera? Yeah. All right. So I have my 45-degree line. Now, if I want to make it another line next to that, I'm going to have to turn it upside down just because I'm right-handed. I'm going to put my 1-inch line on top of that line and draw another one. And look what happened. Okay, so I'm beginning to get, this is the pattern we're going to create. 1, 2, 3. And if you're doing 4, 5, 6, whatever, you do whatever you need for your design. So now we have one piece of the star. I went the wrong way. This is sort of upside down and backwards. It's like I would never make a good dentist. So there, so that now is going to become the pattern that we want. Now, similarly, I did the same thing with little bits of fabric so that I could play with my colors. So that's one way we could do the colors. Now, how do we know we're going to like that when it's a star? Well, here's a quilter's trick. And I've never done this before. This arrived in the mail this morning, just in time for this class. So we'll find out if this is going to work. Is it working on the camera? Close. Maybe I can change the angle on the camera. There we go.
Oh, that's
So I have a
neat.
little mirror here. If I can get it aimed correctly. you begin to get the feel for how that's going to look. And then if I move things around, we can play with it. And even if you don't have a mirror, you could do 2 of them or whatever, just to get a feel for how it's going to display when it spins. So Betty did a lot of this experimentation when she was working with her stack of wet quilt. You know, if I aim it that way, or if I aim it, I made that one symmetrical, so it's not going to change if I move things around. But let's see, let's just, all right, so if I move it now, I've got the floral going as the point. Do I like that better or worse? What do you think?
I like that one.
I do too. It's like a snowflake, very original.
Yeah, so you can see it's the same colors. We just organize them differently. So now when we spin it and do our sort of kaleidoscope thing, that's what a kaleidoscope does, is it uses mirrors to take one image and spin it. And so are we gonna like that configuration better than the other one?
I knew it had some familiarity.
Right. I used to have a kaleidoscope that you could put your own stuff in it. No paper clips,
Neat.
beads, whatever, you know, and it was really fun to see all the silly configurations you could make. But anyway, so that's the idea. That's the principle. We'll do that. We can do exactly the same thing with a 60-degree angle and make a 6-pointed star. With a 45-degree angle, you're going to come out with an 8-pointed star. So your choice. But doing the 6-pointed star is going to be exactly the same. Oh, I've changed my field of view. So, oh, and I better change because it's getting some glare. See if we, yeah, this looks good. All right. So let's do a 6-pointed star. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So there's 3 pieces of fabric. 4. And I'm going to take my 60-degree angle. There it is. Yes. And it doesn't want to. It's in the right place. Yeah. All right, so I did the same thing and I drew my 60-degree angle. And now I'm gonna put more parallel lines. Again, I'm drawing 1-inch width. So you can see there are two critical measures. Remember, I always look for the critical match point. So what's important about this structure that I'm building? So the 2 important parts in both of these cases are 60-degree angle here, or 45 in the case of the other one. Did I go the right direction? No. My dental skills again are not so great. Okay, so it's this width and this width are the 2 to care about. Okay, the size of the lines will take care of themselves, but you know, because from here to here, don't worry about it, it'll take care of itself. The ones you care about are the distance between these parallel lines and the distance between these parallel lines. Okay.
Fine.
All right, so now I've got my matrix set up there. And I just happen to have some little 60-degree. I have an exercise class, she said. All right, so I'm just plunking these down. And well, I guess I didn't randomize that too much, did I? Let's see what this looks like. Let's not so great. What do I want there? I think I want some greens. Okay. And what I did, by the way, is when I was playing with this for real, was I took pictures. I put a configuration together and I take a picture of it, and then I look at the next one and say, do I like it? Do I hate it? And so here's my 6-pointed star, Jen.
Nice.
Oh, I don't love it yet, but anyway. But, it'll be very different depending whether I put one color like I have here radiating out or going around. So you can look at it from different dimensions like that and decide how much you love it or hate it. So this is just a little bitty mirror. You can use your own mirror. It doesn't have to be this one. This is conveniently hinged the way quilters love it. But you can do it with any mirror or just imagine it. But depending, for example, if I put the green radiating out, it's going to have a different feel than if I put the yellow radiating out, etc. So just play with it. It's just literally paper dolls. And when you get it where you like it, take a picture of it or glue them down or something like that. Because then we're going to work with this. Let me put this in some sequence that I kind of like anyway. Let's see, if I put these radiating out, I like to do that. That's good enough for what we're talking about. All right, so I've got this. Let's say I've glued these down. Now, when I go to make my strips, I'm going to have one set of strips like that, right? And one set of strips like that. And one set of strips like that. So, for example, this is the strip set that I did for the baby quilt. Oh, it's still a tube. I forgot it was still a tube. But you can see how I sliced that tube. Sorry. Okay. So here's my tube. And then I sliced it in order to make the strips you saw before. Now this is from my star. I made one set of strips. When I get it positioned, it'll be better. One set of strips like that. One like that. So that's basically the opposite. And one like this. The one in the middle. I'll put it in the middle. That makes more sense. Like that. And like that. So in the case of an angled one, before you put your strips together, I would cut this angle at the end of every strip. Your 45 or 60 degree angle, you cut it at the beginning of every strip. That one, when you put it together, you don't have wasted fabric, because if you put it together square and then you cut, now you've lost quite a bit, especially on that inside one. So I put that together, and this is my star. Sort of hide behind. How's that? Okay. Not bad. So each of these little diamonds goes together to make the star. All right. So hopefully that gives you some fun stuff to play with.
So would you make the strip then and also have like a background fabric?
Yeah,
Why?
right. I didn't get the instructions worked out for the background fabric, but yes, we can work on that. If you do get this far, just don't sew all the way to the end.
Uh-huh.
Here, leave yourself at least 1/4 of an inch there, because we'll be putting them together that way. But normally you would go ahead and put some background fabric here before you put this seam together. Before you put this seam together on your diamond, you'd have some fabric going up to make your background. And I'll work out something that sounds reasonable. But right now I'm flying by the seat of the pants, so to speak. When you're dealing with 45-degree angles, you need a half square triangle or you need whatever. So the 45s are easier to work with and you come out with a square. When you're dealing with 60 degrees, then it's a little trickier, but it's still very doable. And again, the critical bits are that angle. And especially when you're working with the background.
I like this.
If you like doing 60-degree things, there is such a thing as a 60-degree template. So
Okay,
I have
yeah.
one of those, but
That's what I just.
not critical. As you saw, you have the wherewithal to do 45 or 60-degree angles just with your regular quilting ruler. Okay. So hopefully that gives you some stuff to play with. And next week we'll see progress, right? Bring some stuff you're working on, whatever. What do you glue it together with? I use a glue stick. You can get it in CVS. It's a regular kind of thing you buy for kids for school. Karen wanted to know what we use to glue the little bits of fabric to the paper. And I would just use a glue stick or Scotch tape or whatever. It's only just a guide for you to make sure that you're going to put your strips together correctly.
Can you start with wider strips? 1 inch
Yes.
just seems awfully, I mean,
That's
after
right.
my seams.
Right. I use 1 inch for planning just because it doesn't consume a lot of fabric.
Oh, okay.
So I can plan my colors, but then you can pick the real one, whatever width you want. So we talked about getting a jelly roll of pre-cut strips. Those are usually cut to 2.5. And so 2.5 is a nice size for a quilt. But it could be anything you want. I've also, another fun thing I did, I had a fabric once that had mermaids on it, all kinds of mermaids. So I did what they call fussy cutting. You make yourself a template and I make it out of something you can see through. You can get plastic that you can cut with scissors. So I made a template at the size I wanted, a diamond that I wanted. And then I put it on the fabric on top of one of the mermaids. And I make a draw on the fabric. This is where her hand is, this is where her tail is, something like that. And then you cut 6 of those exactly the same, and then you spin them. And they're adorable. You know, so you have like a water ballet mermaids. They're all doing fun water ballet kinds of moves. And it was really, yeah.
Cool.
So that's called fussy cutting. It means you really worked at getting 6 identical pieces just from random bits of cloth, and it works.
Everybody have a happy turkey day.
Thanks.
You too. I think
Bye.
I'm going to applique. Who knows? Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Take care all.
Thank you.
Thank you.